was just 1 point between them on who was the most likable, and that has been a sore spot for Mitt Romney, so that's pretty good coming out.
Who's the 21 that said that Romney attacked more? I have no idea who they are. I'm sitting here, I'm a Democrat, of course Obama attacked more. Absolutely.
Anderson, yes, a little slap happy here. Back to you.
Thanks. Our top performer is standing by with a reality check on getting tough with China and what it would mean for the U.S. economy. In a few minutes, you'll be able to see the debate again in its entirety. Grab a beer, have some popcorn, and watch it all again. We'll be right back.
China's economic clout came up late in the debate. Mitt Romney once again said he'd label the Chinese as currency manipulators if he became president. Tom Foreman joining us now with a reality check. Tom?
Yeah, hi, Wolf. Both men talked about China as an important trading partner, but they also suggested that China has stolen American jobs through unfair trade practices. Listen.
We are going to insist that China plays by the same rules as everybody else.
In part by holding down artificially the value of their currency. It holds down the prices of their goods. It means our goods aren't as competitive and we lose jobs. That's got to end.
The promise from each man is pretty simple and direct. I will crack down on China, but can they really do that, and do they have their facts right? Let's look at the numbers first, because that does seem to be correct. In fact, we've lost about 2.75 million jobs to China over the past dozen years or so. Most of them have been manufacturing jobs. The Economic Policy Institute has helped put together this map, which shows you where they've been lost. It hasn't been even. All of the darker orange states, that's where they've lost the most. Places like Texas, Oregon, California over here. Look at this. Over the past dozen years or so, they've lost about 3% of their jobs to Chinese competition. The candidates say this is largely because while we base our value of the dollar on the free market, and that determines how much our labor costs, the Chinese are currency manipulators. At least that's the accusation, as Mitt Romney raised there. The idea is that they take the yuan, their currency, and they manipulate it so that it keeps it low, so labor stays inexpensive and more people want to work there. You cannot really have a one-to-one comparison. Let me bring in some tools here to talk about this, son, because U.S. productivity is much higher than Chinese productivity. Nonetheless, as close as we can get to it, we'll try this. If you went to a U.S. factory and you want to put somebody on the line and you want that person to create a product in a manufacturing environment, once you pay all the wages and all the benefits, that's going to come out to about $34 an hour. If you did the same thing in a Chinese company, it's going to be more like $2 an hour. So the Chinese government has structured their infrastructure and everything else around this idea of saying, let's take advantage of all of this labor out there and try to get more companies to move here and to put a lot of products on the market all around the world that are inexpensive, that can outcompete other products. And boy, has it worked. Take a look at this graph about what's happened since 1985. This is where we were in 1985 in terms of how much we were importing to this country from China, how much they're sending us here to buy. And look what's happened since. It has gone up and up and up and up and up. That's the recession, that little notch right there. And it hit a peak here. It has dropped some now, but still, it is way up from where it used to be. And now look at the change in what we've sent to them. We were about equal in 1985, and we have not risen nearly as much in terms of the products that we send to China. So what can a president really do about this? Well, you could put some kind of a trade barrier in place and say we're not going to accept all those Chinese products, or there's going to be some kind of tariff imposed. But if you do that, China could do the same thing, and that would hurt manufacturers here. You could say maybe that U.S. companies could be blocked from going over there to use the cheap labor and keep the jobs here, but that makes them less competitive on the world market. On top of which, there's the whole issue of China buying so much U.S. debt. If China said it didn't want to do that, that could make it harder for the American government to borrow money and keep operating. So the bottom line is, when you listen to these men say that they will really crack down on China, you can take them at their word. The president has taken steps to do that. Mitt Romney says he'll take steps. This is true. The real question is, though, what impact will it have? China has been a tough competitor. It looks like it will continue to be. So even if they mean what they say here, Wolf, that will not be the last word on U.S.-China trade.
Let's not forget, almost all Apple products are manufactured in China, whether iPods, iPads, iPhones. Hundreds of thousands of Chinese are manufacturing those products sold in the United States and around the world. One footnote to an earlier reality check segment. You may recall that President Obama said tonight that the U.S. intervention in Libya cost less than 2 weeks of the war in Iraq. It turns out the president was right. When we checked the math, we found that 2 weeks of the war in Iraq cost about $5 billion at its height, and the Libya intervention cost less than $1 billion, mostly cruise missiles that were launched at various targets in Libya. Anderson?
Let's check back in with Fareed Zakaria. It was interesting to hear both candidates talking tough about China tonight. The question is, what can they actually do down the road?
Well, it's interesting to get a sense of the Chinese reaction. I've talked to a bunch of Chinese people with various levels, and they had always thought going into this campaign that they were going to like Romney. He's three things they love. He's an American businessman, and they're generally very admiring of American business. He's a Republican. In general, over the last 30 or 40 years, the Chinese have thought the Republicans were the party of business, trade, generally more free trade. And three, he organized an Olympics, and the Chinese, think that they also went through this Olympics. So it has been a rude surprise to them that Romney has been so tough. And even in this debate, what you notice in this version, Obama kept saying, look, they could be a partner. We want to cooperate with them. But Romney hammered away for the most part, even though this was the place where he softened his tone least. In most of the other areas, Benghazi, it was almost a complete reversal. On China, he was softer, but still pretty tough. So I imagine in Beijing, very reluctantly, they're coming to the conclusion that whatever America may want, they want continuity, not change.
We got to take a quick break. The debate is generating, obviously, tons of buzz on social media. Some unusual words are getting mentioned the most. Stand by also for a replay of the debate in its entirety. That's in about 6 minutes from now. Take a short break. Our coverage continues. Debate night in America.
Before tonight's debate, who would have guessed that the words bayonet, I should say bayonets, and Whopper would make the biggest splash on Facebook? Bayonets had an enormous spike after President Obama gave this response to Mitt Romney's complaint that the U.S. Navy has too few ships.
I think Governor Romney maybe hasn't spent enough time looking at how our military works. You mentioned the Navy, for example, and that we have fewer ships than we did in 1916. Well, Governor, we also have fewer horses and bayonets because the nature of our military's changed. We have these things called aircraft carriers where planes land on them.
The other term spiking on Facebook is Whopper. Burger King's probably going to be happy about this. President Obama used it to describe Mitt Romney's charge that he went on a world tour apologizing for the United States. Watch.
Nothing Governor Romney just said is true, starting with this notion of me apologizing. This has been probably the biggest whopper that's been told during the course of this campaign.
A whopping jump in mentions of the word Whopper on Facebook, too, as a result of that.
Yeah. Barack Obama made history during tonight's debate. He tied George W. Bush for the most appearances in presidential debates, 6 debates each. And just look at how the years have changed him. You see how Senator Obama looked at his first presidential debate.
Wow. His hair was much darker. Look at that.
Yeah, that was back in 2008.
Yeah.
And in his last one there on the right, he isn't the only one whose looks have kind of changed. Here's a certain TV anchorman in 2007.
Wow.
And in 2012. Wow.
I think I look the same except for the glasses.
Wearing the same suit, dude.
Am I?
Yeah, pretty much. I
Maybe.
think.
I might be. It's a nice suit, though. What do you think?
It works.
You got a nice suit yourself.
Yeah. Barbara Walters says women in television do not age, they just get blonder. Apparently, men just get darker glasses.
You look excellent, too, yeah, but your hair was not as gray.
I had a little more pepper in my hair.
Yeah,
now it's all just salt.
But it's still as short as it always was.
Well,
Yeah.
it's the toupee. What can you do? It's not a toupee.
2 weeks from tomorrow, you know what? Election day.
Election, incredible.
You'll be back here at the CNN election.
We all will be.
It's early Tuesday morning right now. The election now just 2 weeks away.
Here's more of the debate.